So something I've witnessed in myself and in some others as well is that during our sewing process, we're not very honest with ourselves. Let me get into that a little bit deeper. So there's lots of stages to making a garment, as you know, and the first stage is basically deciding what garment you want to make. If you're anything like me, you make a garment on a whim. So you might decide, you might have some vague idea that you want to make a dress, for example, and you make a dress because you want to make a dress. And you might make a specific dress because you see a pretty pattern that you love, or you might have some lovely fabric that you want to use. And for me, at least, that's as far as my thought process goes. I download that pattern, I get instant access to it, I put the pattern together and I start sewing straight away, if I'm lucky. And I make a garment, and what happens is I have a whole wardrobe, or in my case, a rail of garments that I just never wear. If you've been watching my past videos, you'll know that's something that I want to change moving forward this year, is that I am more mindful in my projects, which is why I'm embarking on a capsule wardrobe. But a capsule wardrobe done in my own way. Those videos will be coming soon, so do subscribe if you want to know more. In fact, next Sunday, I will be going through my rail, which is the first stage of my capsule wardrobe. So do look out for that video. The problem is, when I'm in the planning stages of a new garment, I worry about, do I have a pretty pattern? Do I have pretty fabric? Do I have an urge to make it right now? There is no real thought that goes into it. So for me at least, there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect between my body and the garments that I'm actually sewing. Actually, the thought process of this is something I've been ticking over for a while, but it's sort of come together when I was having a chat with my good friend Alicia over at Thoughtful Creativity. And we were talking about the fact that we don't actually sew for our own bodies, we sew for an ideal body. And I think that is so true, especially in my case, it very much is. If I see a dress, maybe the Betty dress, which was my wedding dress that I made, I saw a picture of Lisa Comfort wearing that dress. She looked absolutely stunning in it, and I wanted to look like that on my wedding day. I could make the exact same dress in the exact same fabric and model it in the exact same way as Lisa Comfort, and I'm not going to look like Lisa Comfort. Now, I don't particularly want to look like Lisa Comfort, she looks very lovely, but I want to look like me. I don't want to look like someone else, I just want to look like the best version of myself. But in my mind, when I'm planning this stuff out, I don't look the best version of myself, I look like someone else in my mind, if I'm honest. Can you relate to this? If you can, do leave me a comment down below and let me know. And I think this really ties in with the fact that I'm not thinking thoroughly through about the garments that I am making. And if I did, I think I would have an entirely different wardrobe. There are some things that we can think about and we should think about in the planning stages of making a garment. If you're someone who really struggles with the planning stages, what to make, whether something will suit you, whether it's right for you, whether it'll go with your other garments, etc., then do keep watching this, because I think you'll find it very useful. So I've got 6 questions that I think we should be asking ourselves in the planning stages of making a garment. Let me know down below if you agree with these questions or not. So let's just say, for argument's sake, we know what we want to make. We've decided on a whim that we're going to make a t-shirt. We've got the perfect pattern for it. The first question we need to ask ourselves is, will we wear it? Now, maybe a t-shirt was a bad example, because who doesn't wear t-shirts? But go with me here. So let's change that example to a dress to fit in with what I'm going to say a little bit better. You decided on a whim you want to make a dress. You found your pattern. Take this dress I'm wearing here, which I'll put a picture in of here. This is the Itch to Stitch Antrim dress. I had to think for a minute then. I've got 2 videos on that I've done, so do check those out. I've got a sew along and a review video. And it's a lovely dress. It fits me like an absolute dream, and it's so cozy. The only time this ever comes out is when I'm going on camera, because I just don't go anywhere where I would wear it. In a way, it was a bit of a waste of money. Well, not just money, but time and effort as well. And it's sitting in my wardrobe, and I've got about 3 or 4, maybe 5 cardigans in there. None, maybe one, but not really any that would go with this. And that's a real shame. So when you ask yourself, is it something I would wear? You've got to ask yourself, is it practical? Think about your day-to-day life. Are you working from home, which might be the case because of COVID, or are you going to the office? If you're going to the office, does this garment that you want to make fit in with the uniform there? If you work from home, is the dress a relaxed dress, or is it a more dressy up dress? When you're at home, do you tend to wear your pyjamas, or do you get dressed and wear a dress? And if so, would you wear it? You've got to really think about these things. And once you've convinced yourself that yes, you would wear it, it is right for your lifestyle, does it also have the temperature control that you want? Because sometimes pattern designers bring dresses out, like summer dresses, in the middle of winter, because half the world is on different hemispheres. And so, you know, you might find a New Zealand designer if you live in the UK and you're on opposite zones. Also, as I touched on just now, does it go with anything else in your wardrobe? It's all good and well having lots of garments, even lots of garments that you'll wear, but if you can't mix and match them, you're really restricting the amount of garments that you have, or the amount of outfits you have. So the next question I think we should be asking ourselves is the garment useful? Does it serve any function? So once you've decided it is something you would wear, and it will go with other garments in your wardrobe, is it actually functional? So if you want to make this dress, do you have a gap in your wardrobe for more dresses? Or do you have more dresses than you can wear right now? You've got to really think about it. It's no good having lots and lots of dresses because they're pretty and you love them if you're never going to wear them. It's about maximising your wardrobe and being able to make good use out of everything that is there. And I'm guessing that if it is missing from your wardrobe, then it will get some wear. Do ask yourself though, is it missing from my wardrobe because I just would not ever wear it, or it's missing from my wardrobe because I've worn out the other versions of this type of dress that I had? Also, you want to ask, are you going to learn anything from making this garment? Because aside from the actual dressing and styling part of it, sewing is our hobby and we always want to be developing our skills. Is there anything that you can learn from making this garment? Or is it a case of you just want to whip up something quickly? So you've asked yourself, will I make this and is it useful? The next question to ask yourself is, do I have the time to make this? So I don't know about you, but especially in the early stages of my sewing career, if you like, I would definitely not even consider how long it took me. I don't think I even looked at the estimated time on a pattern. It just wasn't a consideration for me. As my sewing has developed, it has become a bit more of one, but not as much as it should be really. So I make YouTube videos, and so that extends the process for me to make it, because often when I'm making something I'm filming it as well, and that really considerably slows the process down. So I really have to think more about the time frame that I can make it in. For example, when I'm making a garment, especially a more complex one, I will make 12, sometimes up to 3 or 4 12s in order to get a really good fit. That isn't something I did in the beginning. I wish I did, but I didn't. And that does take time, because essentially you're making 3 or 4 garments, although you don't finish it. It's a very quick version of the 3 or 4 garments. So something to consider when you're thinking about the time frame is, how many 12s is this going to take? Or can I just make it straight out of the packet? If I make it straight out of the packet, am I going to be happy with the end result if it's not perfect? So once I assess roughly how long it's going to take, I need to think about, do I have the time frame available? Am I making this garment for a specific reason? If so, there'll be a deadline attached. Does that fit within my timeline? If it doesn't, is there any way I can prioritise making this over some other tasks that I need to do? Or will it need to go on the back burner? Because that's something I do. When I buy patterns, I think, oh yes, I'm going to make this straight away. Then other things get in the way. And before I know it, I found another pattern I want. And that takes priority over the previous pattern I bought. And then the previous pattern just ends up never getting made. And so that's really important, and I would actually suggest that you don't buy the pattern until you're ready to make it, because the chances are by the time you get ready to make it, you will have changed your mind. So once you've decided that you will wear it, it is useful and you can fit it into your time frame, the next thing to consider is this within my skill level, or can I attain the skill level to make this? We need to be looking at the techniques. Often a designer will list the techniques that you can learn. If it doesn't, you can look at the line art and you can see all sorts of information there about the techniques that you will need. Do you have the skills to make the garment in the time frame that you want to make it? I personally think most patterns out there anyone can do with a little bit of experience, because some people think a coat is really difficult to make, and actually it's not. I've made about 4 or 5 at this stage. To me, it's not any more difficult than a dress. The difference with a coat is there's a lot more pieces, it's a lot more involved, in such as there's a longer process of sewing to get to your end result. But if you take it a little bit at a time, it's just like doing a short project each time, and eventually you'll have your coat. So often garments with more skills attached to them are not necessarily more difficult. Like, for example, you might be scared to do French seams if you've never done them, but all a French seam is 2 lots of straight seams, and that's all it is, literally. You sew one line of stitch in, turn the fabric in the other way and sew another line so the stitch line is enclosed, and that's a French seam. So I don't believe personally that there is anything that you can't do, but sometimes more advanced skills can take longer to master. And so you do need to take that into account when you're thinking about your timeline and what you can achieve when you're making this garment. And if you don't have the skills to make it there and then, can you acquire that skill? All it takes is practicing on a scrap piece of fabric. But do you have the time to do that? It's really important to assess these things, because if you go into it half blind, then you may well give up halfway through. We've all got a box of UFOs, haven't we? And that just got left because we haven't got time, we fall out of love with it, all sorts of reasons. But I really think if we did the planning with these questions, we would not have a box of UFOs to go back to. So when I was about 6 months into my channel, I did a video going through my whip, or my whip pile. It's a little basket, or quite a big basket in fact, full of stuff that I need to go back and do something to it, either finish it or change something to it, and to make it wearable. And I said in that video, I'm pretty sure I said anyway, I haven't watched it for a long time, I was going to amend these things or fix them up or make them finished in some way. And I haven't even touched it. We just don't go back to our whips. Certainly I don't. And so these questions will really, really stop you from wasting your fabric, wasting your time and your effort. So the next question to ask yourself when you've asked yourself all those other questions is, do I have the resources to make this happen? We need to ask ourselves when we're looking at the pattern, what resources does this take? It might be super simple where you just need fabric and nothing else, but you might also need zips or buttons or a hook and eye. You could need anything, especially if you're making a bag. It doesn't have to be garments, it could be a bag. When I'm making a bag, I look at the list of resources on there and my eyes just glaze over. There's so many things you need, and I just think, oh, it'll be all right. I've got lots of bag supplies. I'll be fine. Then halfway through making my bag, I haven't got this and I haven't got that, and I've got to wait for it to arrive in the post. And actually it then ends up being a lot more expensive than I realised. So once you've worked out what resources you need, you have to ask yourself, do I have them in the house, or do I need to go purchase them? If you need to purchase them, that's going to be additional cost, and it's a really good idea to be working out that cost ahead of purchasing your pattern, and even before the final say so in your mind about whether you're making this garment. And the last point to consider, and perhaps a little bit more of a glamorous point, is, will I enjoy making this? Now, this is often the first question that we ask ourselves, certainly the first question that I ask myself. That has been my main priority in my sewing, is, do I want to make it? Will I enjoy making it? But actually it is important to ask yourself that, because you won't finish the project if you don't enjoy it. But it's certainly not the most important one in my mind. And I think it's important because we've got to ask ourselves, are we going to be really excited to make this, or is it going to feel like a chore? I don't know about you, but making face masks to me feels like a chore. It's something we need, we have to have. It's not especially glamorous, and so it feels like a bit of a chore. So I just make that when I absolutely have to. Versus when I get some pretty fabric, that really energises me into making the thing. And so I think there's a real distinct difference, and it's something we have to be aware of. I mean, you do need to balance it out, because if it does feel like a chore but you do need it in your wardrobe, maybe you can balance that out by having some fabric that you really enjoy working with. So that brings me on to my next point. Do I have the fabric where I am going to enjoy making this? And I touched on this in my last video, that we hoard all the fabric, because when we're purchasing it, we absolutely love that fabric. We die for that fabric. We cannot live without that fabric. It sits on the shelf and we don't get round to using it for a year, and then all that love and energy from purchasing that fabric, must have that fabric, has died away. Yes, we still think it's a pretty fabric. Are we in love with it? And I think part of the reason is because we own that now. It's all about the want of not owning it, needing to have it. The thing that comes to mind is like a teenage boy who chases the girl, and he chases her and chases her, she's not interested, and he keeps chasing, and then he gets her, and then he's lost interest, because it's all about the chase. And I think that that is the same situation when we buy fabric. I really, really do. Let me know if you agree with me on that one. So, do I have fabric that's going to make me really enjoy making this pattern? Not only that, is the fabric going to go with everything in my wardrobe just there? And also, is the fabric my own style now? Because style can change from month to month, from year to year, and if your fabric's been sat there for a while, it might no longer be your style. So these are all things to consider. And you've also got to ask yourself, at the end of the day, all things considered, is it worth your effort to make this garment? I think if you've assessed all of that and you still think the effort is worth it, you should go ahead and make it, because there's nothing standing in your way now. There just is nothing standing in your way. I think once we've asked ourselves these questions, we are no longer lying to ourselves. We've really assessed, is it going to be right for us? Now, there are lots more questions we could ask ourselves, and it is very much a personal thing. But if you agree or disagree with what I've said, do let me know down below. What questions do you ask yourself before you start to sew, or before you even decide what garment to make? I'd be really interested to know. So if you liked this video and you'd like to see more, do hit that subscription button down below and the bell as well. Give me a like and a comment, and I will see you in the next one. Happy sewing. Bye for now.